Po, ma'am.
Good morning po all. Oo, can you see the ano po, the PowerPoint visible?
Yes po.
Sige po. I think all of you are in ay ba't ang konti pa lang ano, 80 ano pa lang, eh, marami kayo? Kindly inform the others po that we will start na. For those na ano, puwede namang, ah yung mga class representative, 'di ba? I have scheduled 2 naman. So if you are able to if you kumbaga kung sino talaga yung naka-schedule ngayon, for example, A5 and B5 'no, naka-schedule ngayong morning, tama ba?
Yes po, ma'am.
Saka yung A7 and B7, naka-schedule din ng morning 'yan. Pero sige lang if they want to attend at 12 noon, it's okay din. Anyway, na-announce ko naman nung una na ano, na puwede naman kayo umattend either of the 2 schedules, okay? So kung wala na pong hahabol, I'll start na. Kindly, okey na ba? Or we will still wait for others to join? Kung sino po gusto mag-record ng ano natin ngayon, ng Zoom natin ngayon, I'll give permission kasi hindi na ako makapag-record, eh. Hindi na ako makapag-record ng Zoom. Kayo na po ang mag-record ta's kayo na mag-upload doon sa ating ano, sa GC ninyo para mai-share sa mga para if you want to listen again to the discussion as a review 'no, puwede na rin po 'no. So kung meron po sa inyo gusto mag-record later kapag magsisimula na po ako, I will allow na lang, hingi na lang kayo ng permission to record and then I will allow, 'no? So maybe I'll wait for 5 more minutes or wala na. Teka wait, I'll check the GC na lang talaga, yung iba yata, na-announce kasi na 12 noon 'no, kaya they will attend the 12 noon session na lang. Okay, good morning again.
Good morning po, ma'am. Puwede po pa-admit po yung exchange student ng A5?
Recording
Okay.
in progress.
Naka-ano naman ako, naka-disable yung waiting room. They can enter anytime 'no?
Yeah.
Mm. Wala naman
Okay,
wala
thank you.
waiting room. Kindly just give them the Zoom link and then they can enter.
Okay po.
Thank you. So I'll just wait for them. We will just wait for our exchange students to enter before
Ma'am,
we
nakapag-enter na po sila. I think nag-chat po sila sa chat box.
Okay. I'll check. Okay, good morning. Good morning, Miss. Our students, exchange students from Saksyon University. Okay, so good morning. Name is Maud. Maud, is it correct?
Maud.
No?
Maud
Maud.
po. Maud.
Maud. Okay.
Out and
Good morning. Hello, good morning. And the other one's name is
Liam.
Liam. Okay. Good morning and
Going from
welcome.
one screen.
Okay. So good morning and welcome to our online class. Since there is cancellation of classes for today, F2F classes, no, we will continue on with the discussion via online platform. Okay. So I want to confirm if you are seeing the PowerPoint or the presentation before I continue. Is it
Yes
visible?
po. Yes po.
Okay, thank you. So before, at the beginning of our classes, we've discussed already the fundamental concepts in pharmacology, wherein I teach you or we differentiated between mechanism of action and mode of action. So again, as a review, when we talk about mode of action, we are talking of the intended effect of the drug. For example, we gave paracetamol or ibuprofen, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug. So the effect of that will be the mode of action, which is a pain reliever. Wherein, when we talk about mechanism of action, we are talking of the receptors or the process wherein how the active ingredient will be able to reach the target site to elicit the effect of pain relief. Okay? So why do I need to remind you of this? Because when we discuss about pharmacodynamics, we will be talking of the receptors. Okay? So we will be talking of the receptors now. And here, when we say pharmacokinetics, before I proceed to pharmacodynamics, pharmacokinetics I have discussed pharmacokinetics as the effect of the body to the drug. The effect of the body to the drug, wherein when we ingested medication, what will happen? What are the processes the medication will undergo? Uh, if you have ingested a tablet or a solid form of the drug, it should disintegrate first and enter the dissolution phase, or should be converted into a liquid before it could be absorbed, or will enter the absorption phase, and then next will be the distribution phase, and then the metabolism phase, and finally the excretion phase. Okay, so when drug will be absorbed in the body and will be delivered to the target site by the blood vessels, and once it reach the target site, it will bind with receptors. So these receptors now binding with the active ingredient of the drug will be the start of the pharmacodynamic phase. Okay, so what is pharmacodynamic phase now? Pharmacodynamic phase is when the drug will give effect to the body. Okay, so what will be the effect of the drug to the body, no? When the drug will reach the target site and bind with a receptor, will it elicit will the drug be an agonist or antagonist? Meaning, will the drug stimulate the cell to function or will it control the cell to decrease its functioning? Okay? So that is the pharmacodynamic phase. But before I proceed, no, I want to present to you my learning objectives. At the end of the topic, you will be able to understand the concept of pharmacodynamics, which is the effect of the drugs to the body, and also discuss some of the factors affecting responses to drug. Same like what we discussed last week about pharmacokinetics, there are factors. It could be based on the body of the patient receiving the medication, or it could be based on the type of drug given. It will affect the phases of absorption, distribution, metabolism, and excretion. So this time, we will be discussing what are the factors that could affect, no, that could affect the differences of the effectiveness of the drug on the body. Okay? So what is now pharmacodynamic phase? The pharmacodynamics is the study of the effect of the drugs on the body. Okay? So that is the meaning of uh, pharmacodynamics. Okay, so let me continue. So here in the pharmacodynamic phase, no, we have to remember that wait lang. Hindi ko yata na-share yung sound. Sandali I'll be i-ano ko lang ulit kasi may video yan eh. Sandali lang po.
Most people will take a pill, receive an injection, or otherwise take some kind of medicine during their lives. But most of us don't know anything about how these substances actually work. How can various compounds impact the way we physically feel, think, and even behave? For the most part, this depends on how a drug alters the communication between cells in the brain. There are a number of different ways that can happen. But before it gets into the brain, any drug must first reach the bloodstream on a journey that can take anywhere from seconds to hours, depending on factors like how it's administered. The slowest method is to take a drug orally, because it must be absorbed by our digestive system before it takes effect. Inhaling a drug gets it into the bloodstream faster. And injecting a drug intravenously works quickly too, because it pumps the chemicals directly into the blood. Once there, the drug quickly reaches the gates of its destination, the brain. The entrance to this organ is guarded by the blood-brain barrier, which separates blood from the nervous system to keep potentially dangerous substances out. So all drugs must have a specific chemical composition, which gives them the key to unlock this barrier and pass through. Once inside, drugs start to interfere with the brain's normal functioning by targeting its web of neurons and synapses. Neurons are brain cells that have a nucleus, dendrites, and an axon. Synapses are structures placed along the dendrites or the axon, which allow the exchange of electrochemical signals between neurons. Those signals take the form of chemicals called neurotransmitters. Each neurotransmitter plays different roles in regulating our behaviors, emotions, and cognition, but they all work in one of two ways. They can either inhibit the receiving neuron, limiting its activity, or excite it, creating a new electrochemical signal that spreads throughout the network. Any leftover neurotransmitter usually gets degraded or reabsorbed into the transmitting neuron. A drug's effectiveness stems from its ability to manipulate these synaptic transmissions at different phases of the process. That results in an increase or a decrease in the amount of neurotransmitters being spread. For instance, Common antidepressants, like SSRIs, stop the reabsorption of serotonin, a neurotransmitter that modulates our moods. This effectively pushes more of it into the neural network. Meanwhile, painkillers, like morphine, raise levels of serotonin and noradrenaline, which regulate energy, arousal, alertness, and pleasure. Those same neurotransmitters also affect endorphin receptors, reducing pain perception. And tranquilizers work by increasing the production of GABA to inhibit neural activity, putting the person in a relaxed or sedated state. What about illegal or illicit drugs? These have powerful impacts on the brain that we're still trying to understand. Crystal meth, and amphetamine, induces a long-lasting release of dopamine, a neurotransmitter linked with the perception of reward and pleasure. It also activates noradrenaline receptors, which increases the heart rate, dilates pupils, and triggers the body's fight or flight response. Cocaine blocks the reuptake of dopamine and serotonin, pushing more into the network where they boost energy, create feelings of euphoria, and suppress appetites. And hallucinogenic drugs have some of the most puzzling effects. Substances like LSD, mescaline, and DMT all block the release of serotonin, which regulates mood and impulsivity. They also have an impact on the neural circuits involved in perception, learning, and behavioral regulation, which may explain why these drugs have such powerful impacts. Even if some of these effects sound exciting, there are reasons why some of these drugs are highly controlled and often illegal. Drugs have the power to alter the brain's chemistry, and repeated use can permanently rewire the neural networks that support our ability to think, make decisions, learn, and remember things. There's a lot we still don't know about drugs and their effects, both the good and the bad. But those we do know about are the ones we've studied closely and turned into effective medicines. As our knowledge grows about drugs and the brain, the possibilities will also increase for treating the many medical problems that puzzle researchers today.
Okay. So based on the video, the medications, what once it enters the body and reach the target site, and once binded with a receptor, it will elicit effect. No, it could control the brain. It depends on the type of medication. If the drug is a CNS medication, it could control the brain and the spinal cord. So it depends on what particular target site or system the drug will target. Okay, so drug act within the body to mimic the actions of the body's own chemical messenger. We have our own. When we talk about chemical messenger, we are talking of hormones. We are talking of neurotransmitters. What else? We are neuropeptides. No, we have our own. No, we our body are producing our own hormones, neurotransmitters, neuropeptides, and uh, hormones, no? But if the body or the organ will not produce the enough amount, no, the medication will replace them. So, for example, you are lacking thyroid hormone, so you have hypothyroidism. So you will be given medications that will make the thyroid hormone in the body at a normal level. Okay, so meaning the medications that you are giving will copy the natural hormones, the natural neurotransmitters, the natural neuropeptides, and the perohormones that our own body are producing. Okay, so the effect of that, it depends on the type of meaning the type of medication, at the same time how the body will react to it. Okay, so these are the factors affecting the dose response relationship. Why is it for some medication we can only give it at a small amount, but it will become very effective? Wherein there are medications that we need to give at a large amount before it becomes effective. And that is because of the following factors. One could be the drug affinity, second one will be the drug efficacy, third one will be the drug potency. So let us discuss this one by one. Okay? So, when we talk about drug affinity, it is defined as how avidly a drug binds to its receptor, or how the chemical forces that cause a substance to bind its receptor. It's like a magnet to a metal. Why is it some medications are categorized as high affinity drug? Meaning, when we give this medication, high affinity drug, once it enters and absorbed into our system, it will instantly bind with a certain receptor. So meaning, almost all of them no, will bind with a receptor, and they are considered high affinity drug. Okay? So wherein, if we say that a drug has a low affinity drug, mostly they are given at a larger amount because these drugs have only limited receptors to bind, no? Kaya nga low affinity, meaning when we say low affinity, uh, you are not the, meaning you need to have more receptors for you to reach the target site and give effect. Okay, but the problem is the receptor that should bind these medications are of small number. So you should give this in higher milligram. Okay, so let's say for example, why is it morphine is given only at 10 milligram compared to ibuprofen that we need to give at 250 milligram, because morphine has high affinity, no, compared to ibuprofen. Now, they are both pain relievers, but why is it one is given at a higher dosage and one is given at a low dosage, no? So basically, if you notice this medications given at a low milligram, they are considered high affinity drug. Okay? So once they bind with a receptor, high affinity, and the receptor fits with the target site, fits with the active ingredient of the drug, no? They will elicit what we call the agonistic effect. Okay, that drug is considered agonist. Agonist meaning it will cause a reaction on the target site. Okay, meaning it will stimulate the cell, or it will stimulate the organ to increase the functioning. Okay, that is an agonist, no? For example, you gave uh this oral hypoglycemic agent like metformin, for example, only, no? Metformin is an oral hypoglycemic agent given to patient with diabetes, no? So why is it given? Because when you take metformin, it will stimulate the pancreas to produce more insulin. Okay, so that is an example of an agonist, no? It will stimulate your organ to produce more of the natural hormones that your body is creating. Okay, so yun po. And when we say an antagonist drug will act in reverse, no? They will bind with a receptor, and once it binds with a receptor and that drug is an antagonist, it will control the functioning of that organ. Okay, so for example, you have hyperthyroidism. For example, now you have too much thyroid hormone. So you will be given medication that will target the thyroid gland to decrease its functioning. And that medication is considered antagonist. Blocker, inhibitor, no? They are considered antagonist. Okay? So let me continue. When we talk about drug efficacy, refers to the drug ability to activate the receptor. So once the drug binds with a receptor, it doesn't immediately cause an effect, no? It depends again on another factor, that is drug efficacy. So what is drug efficacy? Maximum response achievable from an applied or dosed agent. So when we say maximal effect that a drug produces irrespective of the concentration or dose. A drug is considered high efficacy drug. Same with what we discussed a while ago, affinity, no? Mostly, if you will give a drug that is high affinity, okay, they are given at small doses, but they will be highly effective. Okay? So, because this drug that is considered high affinity will have more receptors compared to medication that is considered low affinity. So if the drug has more receptors, it could easily reach the target site and elicit the effect. So that drug has high efficacy or high effect, no? High effectiveness compared to drug that is considered low affinity. Okay, so it will, the affinity of the drug will affect the efficacy. Okay, so I'll give you example, no? So when we talk about drug efficacy, maximal efficacy, no, in short, the point at which increasing a drug dosage no longer increases the desired therapeutic response. So let's say the doctor gave you ibuprofen, that is 250 milligram for your pain. So the doctor had told you, okay, take ibuprofen every 4 hours for your pain. So you have ingested ibuprofen at 8 in the morning, 8 o'clock, and you are given 250 milligram. So, that 250 milligram will elicit a therapeutic effect. Let's say, for example, the 250 milligram, okay, will elicit an effect of 7 out of 10, meaning the efficacy will be 7 out of 10. Okay, so that will be the effectiveness 10 as the highest, no? So, your pain will decrease. But maybe the patient will tell you, can you give me another dosage of 250 milligram so that I will have a 10 efficacy rate? Or meaning, so that my pain will be gone, no? Because I can still some little bit of pain. Okay? So if you are thinking of maximal efficacy, you should not be giving another dosage. Why? Because 250 milligram efficacy is only until 7. So even if you will double this to 500 milligram, still the efficacy will still be 7. Okay? Because this medication will have the same receptor. Okay? Can you understand? Meaning, if you will give 250 milligram, 250 milligram is enough. Because 250 milligram will have the number of receptors needed to elicit the effectiveness of 7. If you will give 500 milligram or double the medication, the number of receptor will not increase. It will still be the same. So the effectiveness of the drug will still be 7. Okay? Do you understand? Any question or clarification? Hello? Is it
Wala naman po.
is it clear? No? So meaning, if the drug is not that effective, what will be the solution for this? The doctor should give another type of medication with a different mechanism of action. Because the medication, for example, ibuprofen, and then give another ibuprofen, they have the same mechanism of action. And they both have the same receptor. So the ibuprofen plus maybe paracetamol. Okay, or maybe ibuprofen plus a narcotic drug. Okay, so that these two will have different receptor and they will act separately, and the effect will be doubled. Okay, so that is how that is the reason why some patients are given two types of medication. Okay, with the same effect but with a different mechanism of action. Okay? So let me go to potency. Potency refers to the amount of drug needed to elicit a specific physiologic response to a drug. So it is also related to the what I'm discussing a while ago about efficacy and about affinity. Okay? So potency, just remember, small but terrible. Small but terrible. Okay? Little amount but highly effective. We are pertaining to medication, no? Little amount but highly effective. So we have different category of medication pertaining to potency. We have high potency drug, we have moderate potency drug or medium potency, and we have the low potency drug. So same as my discussion a while ago, if the drug is given at a small amount but highly effective, that drug is considered high potency drug. Wherein if the drug has to be given more in more amount to elicit a therapeutic effect, that drug, this is morphine and this is ibuprofen, for example. Now, they are both pain relievers. So drug A is given at 10 milligram, for example, no? Wherein ibuprofen is given 250 milligram. Okay? So, the effectiveness of morphine given at 10 milligram will be 10. And the effectiveness of ibuprofen given at 250 milligram will still be 10. Same, 10. Okay? So meaning, if we're going to compare the two type of medication, both of them are pain relievers, which of this is considered high potency drug? Is it drug A or drug B?
Drug A po.
Very good. Yes, very good. Drug A is considered high potency drug, and drug B is considered
Low potency.
low
Low.
potency. Okay, very good. Do you understand what is potency?
Yes po.
Okay, so let me give you some uh questions, no? I want you to answer based on the diagram that you see here. By the way, in your examination, I am giving, no? I will be giving questions similar to this. So you have to try to answer it correctly, no? So I have here 6 questions. 3 pertains to potency and 3 questions pertains to efficacy. Okay? So we have 4 types of medication: drug A, drug B, drug C, and then we have drug D. Here below, we are talking of the dosage. So how much drug is given? So let's say, for example, this is 10, this is 20, this is 50, and this is 100, for example. No? We are talking of milligram. Okay? So, and here, on the side, the response, we have here the efficacy. So let's say this one is instead of 10, they put it in decimals, no? So from 0, 0.1, 0.3, 0.4, 0.1 being the highest. Okay? So if you're going to look here, which drug is more potent? Is it drug A or B? I'm talking about potency, no? Which drug is considered a high potency drug between the two? Is it drug A or drug B?
Drug A po.
Drug A, why? Because drug A is given at how much?
Lower dosage.
Which is how many milligram?
20 milligrams.
20 milligram. Compared to drug B given at how many milligram?
50
50.
milligrams.
50. Kaya, yes, correct. No? Drug A is more potent compared to drug B. How about number 2? Drug A or drug C?
A.
Okay, still drug A. Why? Because drug A is still 20. So drug A is considered more potent compared to drug C. How about A or D?
D po. Still A.
A or
D
D?
po. D po. A.
Iba na ang sagot, may A, may D. Ha? So when we talk about potency, it means drug is given less but becomes effective. So how do we know the drug is effective? If the drug has exceeded 50% of the effectiveness. Meaning if the drug has given the effect that is more than 50% efficacy, it is considered potent. Okay? So again, which drug is more potent, A or D?
D.
Huh? A or D? Yes, it is drug D, no? Why? Because drug D is given at 10 milligram but have reached the efficacy of 0.62, meaning more than half. So it is considered effective as well, no? So D is the correct answer. When we talk about efficacy, we will be looking at these numbers. Which drug is more efficacious, drug A or B? Which drug is more
A po.
efficacious, A or B?
Oh.
Yes, parang I didn't hear your answer. A or B?
A.
A. How about the others? What is your answer?
Both.
Okay, very good. Both. Why? Both A and B because they both have
Exceed.
an efficacy rate of 1. Okay? Irregardless of the dose, we are talking here of efficacy. They both reach the efficacy rate of 1, which is the highest. Drug A and drug B. So the answer will be equal. Okay? Did you get it?
Yes, that's so.
Okay. Drug A or C? Which drug is more efficacious? Drug A or C? Drug A. Because drug A, 1, wherein drug C, saan ba ang drug C? 0.62. So A is more efficacious. How about drug A or D?
A po. A po.
Same. Okay. So if you're going to make a statement out of this diagram, no, we could say that drug A is a potent drug, more potent drug compared to drug B, but equally efficacious. Okay? Drug A is a more potent drug because drug A is given at a less dosage, but in terms of efficacy, they are equal. Okay? Can you understand po?
Yes po, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay. Let me give you pictures of medication. So I want you to answer the blank space. You choose only between more, less, or equal. Okay? Petidine is blank potent analgesic than morphine but equally efficacious. What is your answer? Is it more, less, or equal?
Yes po.
Less. Mr. Bata said less. How about the others? May sasagot ba ng more or equal? Okay, let's analyze, no? Why is it less? Yes, correct. You are correct, no? The answer is less. But let us analyze why. Why petidine is less potent analgesic than morphine but equally efficacious? Because petidine milligram is how many? How much? Huh?
100 milligram.
100 milligram per 2 ml or 50 milligram per ml, no? So meaning, we have to give petidine 50 milligram per ml. Wherein, morphine, how many milligram we should give it to be effective?
4 milligram per ml.
Yes, 4 milligram per ml. So meaning, we could give lesser morphine, milligram of morphine compared to petidine, which is 50 milligrams. So again, less is more, no? So morphine is more potent compared to petidine. And just answer this call, now give me 1 minute. Okay, so do you understand? I have another example, no? Okay, try to answer this. Furosemide is blank potent diuretics, but more efficacious than metolazone. Is it more, less, or equal?
Yes po.
Okay. Dito sa chat natin, sabi nyo less, no? Let's see, let's analyze kung tama po, no? So, furosemide, how many milligram? 40, no? 40 milligram per tablet, okay? Metolazone, Methenix, metolazone, 5 gram per tablet, okay? So, the answer is less. Less, no? Because furosemide should be given 40 milligram, whereas metolazone is given only at 5 milligram. So metolazone is more potent compared to furosemide. Okay, clear? Another. Morphine is blank potent analgesic and more efficacious than aspirin. What is your answer? More, less, or equal?
More.
More.
More po,
Yes.
ma'am.
Okay, thank you din sa mga sumasagot sa Zoom natin and dito po, no? So, sa chat box natin, nakita ko yung mga sagot ninyo. So, morphine is given 10 milligram. Compared to aspirin, how many milligram? 80 milligram. Okay? So, which drug is given less? It is morphine. So, morphine is more potent. So, morphine is more potent analgesic and more efficacious than aspirin. Okay? Okay, one more. Sige po, try to answer this. Codeine is blank potent analgesic and more efficacious than mefenamic acid.
More po.
More po.
More po, ma'am.
Okay, let's see. Because codeine is given how many milligram? 10 milligram. Compared to mefenamic acid, which is given, di ko mabasa ilang milligram ba ito? 250, no? 250 milligram. Okay? So 10 milligram, lesser milligram, but effective. So codeine is more potent than mefenamic acid. Okay? So do you understand now the difference between potency and efficacy?
Yes po.
Okay?
Yes.
So can we say that if a drug is given more, it is more potent? If a drug is given at a higher milligram, it is more potent?
No po.
Po. No po, ma'am.
No, no. The reason why as well, no, if a drug is given at a more milligram, they have less affinity as well. The reason why they are given more compared to, if you're going to compare the two, no, why is it codeine is given only at 10 milligram compared to mefenamic acid, which has to be given at 250 milligram to be effective? Okay, because codeine has is considered a high affinity drug compared to mefenamic acid that is low affinity. That has low affinity. Okay? So the drug action is affected by the quantity of the drug that reaches the receptor and the degree of attraction or affinity between it and its receptor on the cell surface. Okay? So ang surface ng isang cell kasi, they have millions of receptor, no? Depending, and each drug will bind only with a specific receptor. So, if the drug has no receptor on that cell, that drug will be considered free drug. Okay? They will just be roaming around, no, or traveling in the bloodstream if there are no receptors that will activate them or help them to reach the target site. Okay? So, we will go now to the parameters of drug action. I think I've discussed this before when I teach about fundamentals of nursing, no, in nursing practice, no. I've discussed about the therapeutic index, but again, I want to discuss it to you again for you to be able to understand more, no. So when we talk about therapeutic index, we are talking, it will describe the relationship between the therapeutic dose of a drug, which is the ED50, and the toxic dose of a drug, that is TD50. So a drug, if you still remember our discussion before, no, a drug milligram, the reason why you are given only this milligram, for example, 250 milligram, okay, because there is a maximum dose for this. How do we know the maximum dose and the lowest dose? The maximum dose and the lowest dose of a given drug will be the 50% in the upper portion and then the 50% in the lower. Meaning, if the drug is given at 250 milligram, you divide this into 125 milligram, 700, 250, 375 milligram will be the maximum, wherein 125 milligram will be the minimum. Okay? So, if the drug is given at 250 milligram and the drug dosage that you gave is below 125 milligram, that drug is considered underdose. If the patient has been given 250 milligram and you gave 1000 milligram or 500 milligram, that drug is considered overdose. No, because you have exceeded the maximum, which should be the half of the intended amount only. Okay, so 250 milligram plus 125 will be 375. That is the maximum dosage that you could give. Okay, because above that is considered toxic. So this is the TD50. The ED50 is the 250 milligram, which is the intended dosage of the drug. Okay, let me give you example now for you to understand more. Okay, remember the higher the therapeutic index of a drug, that drug is more safe to give. Kaya if the drug is categorized as a high index drug or high therapeutic index drug, that drug is more safe to give because the window of therapeutic effectiveness is higher. Okay? So if this will be the dosage and above this will be the toxic dose and then below this will be the underdose. If drug is considered high therapeutic index drug, this window from here up to here will be longer. So they are categorized as high therapeutic index drug, and they are more safe to give. So how do we know if a medication is considered high therapeutic index drug? We have to identify, no? We have to identify the TD50 and the ED50. But don't worry, you will not be looking for the TD50 and the ED50. It will be given, no? If ever we will give this in your examination, the TD50 and the ED50 will be given. You just have to compute. So how are we going to compute for it? TD50 divided by ED50. So if the TD50 is 6, look at this example, and the ED50 is 2, you just divide them. 6 divided by 2 will be 3, and 5 below are considered narrow therapeutic index drug. 5 below are considered narrow therapeutic index drug. So if the drug is considered narrow therapeutic index drug, in giving this, you have to monitor the patient for the adverse effect because that the safe dose of the drug is very near, very narrow. Kaya nga sila narrow therapeutic index. I'm going to give example, no? Mas maikli, no? Ito. So, this is the ED50 and this is the TD50. They are very near. Okay, 3 only. Okay? Very near, no? Meaning a little amount of overdose or a little amount of excess dosage will instantly lead to overdose. Okay, which will elicit toxicity. Okay? The reason why they are categorized as narrow therapeutic index drug compared to medication that is considered wide therapeutic index drug. the toxic dose, no, is very far from the safe dose, meaning they have wide therapeutic index, no. It will take many milligram before the patient will have an overdose on this medication. So if you compute the TD50 divided by the ED50 and then you elicit number that is above 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, it means that drug is a wide therapeutic index drug and they are safer to give. Okay, clear? Is it clear? Do you understand?
Yes po.
Okay, so let me give you example. Okay, so this is what I am referring, no? If the drug is considered narrow therapeutic, the safe dose is very near to the toxic dose. Okay, this is an example of a narrow therapeutic index drug, no? So examples of this will be these medications. No, we have the carbamazepine, we have the warfarin, digoxin. Okay, so what do you mean by narrow therapeutic index drug? Again, where small differences in the dosage or blood concentration may lead to a serious therapeutic failure or adverse drug reaction. Okay, so this could be life-threatening. So what are we going to do? We have to compute very carefully if ever you are giving any medication belonging to a narrow therapeutic index medication. You have to you have to compute very, very carefully and give the exact dosage. Okay? Exact dosage because any little amount of excess to the following medication could instantly lead to the toxic effect. Okay? So, example again, warfarin is an anticoagulant, no? Meaning we will be giving warfarin anticoagulant to prevent blood coagulation o yung pagbuo-buo ng dugo, no? Blood coagulation. So, if the drug is given, for example, at let's say for example 10 milligram, okay? 10 milligram. This is the safe dose of the drug, no? So if you will be giving 10, for example, this one is, for example, you gave 20 milligram, okay, above, no? Above the safe dose of the drug, which is only 7.5 milligram maximum, okay? So if you will give 20 milligram, you are above. You are above the therapeutic dose, so the patient will have bleeding. Okay? Because you are giving excess anticoagulant. Wherein, if you will give warfarin at 2.5 milligram, this is below the lowest milligram for the drug to be effective. Because the lowest milligram for the drug to be effective will be 5. Half, no? Of the dosage. So you gave 2.5 milligram below the minimum amount for the drug to be effective. So what will be the effect of the medication warfarin? It will cause clotting. Okay? So the drug will be useless. You are taking warfarin so that your blood will not thicken. But you gave a dosage that is way below the minimum amount. So the effect of that will be underdose. So it will not give the anticoagulant effect. Okay, is it clear? Do you understand?
Yes po, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes.
Let us now proceed to the parameters, still on the parameters of drug action, but this time we will be talking of the onset, peak, and duration of a medication. All medication will have their onset, peak, and duration, but in varying degrees, no, or different degrees. So where can we find it? It is all stated in your drug handbook. So all onset of the medication, peak, and duration are given in the drug handbook. So there is no need for you to memorize it again, no? Just know where to look for the medication and then look for the onset, peak, and duration of the drug will set. Onset is the action of the duration of time it takes, no, for a drug's effect to come to prominence upon administration. Meaning this is the minimum amount of time wherein the patient can feel the effect of the body working, no, and the of the drug working in the body. Okay? So for example, I gave ibuprofen. Okay? I gave ibuprofen at 250 milligram at 8 a.m. Okay? At 8 a.m., I gave 250 milligram of ibuprofen, and the pain scale, for example, is 7 by the time that I gave the ibuprofen. By 8:15, after 15 minutes, no, the patient, you ask the patient, how are you feeling? And then the patient told you, there's still pain, but it lessened, no? So meaning the patient pain scale have lowered to 5. Okay? So meaning the drug effectiveness has been felt, but not totally, meaning the patient is not yet pain free. Okay? So the amount of time, this 15 minutes is considered the onset of the drug. No? So if you see there in your drug handbook that the onset of the medication is 30 minutes, the onset will be 1 hour, the onset will be 5 minutes, that is the minimum amount of time that we could go back to the patient and assess if the patient has already felt the effect of the medication. Okay? But don't expect it to be highly effective pa, no? Because the medication has not yet reached the peak. Okay? So this 8 a.m. will be your T0 because this is the time that you gave it. And then the 8:15 will be the T1 because this is the minimum time the medication has been effective or felt. Okay, clear? So what is now peak? Peak is considered or first when it reaches its highest concentration in the blood plasma concentration. So a while ago, we said that at 8 a.m. we gave the medication ibuprofen. That is the T0. At 8:15 T1, the minimum effect of the drug has been felt. So from a pain scale of 7, it has decreased to 5. By 9 a.m., 9 a.m., that is the peak, no? This is your T2, okay? The pain scale of the patient is now 0 or maybe 1, no? At least very, very minimum na lang, no? 0 or 1. This is the peak, no? Why? Because the peak is when the most of the active ingredient of the drug has now reached the target site. Okay? Most active ingredient of the drug has been absorbed in the blood circulation and is now working on the target site. So this is the peak. Okay? So this is the T2. So if I will ask you, no, let's try to compute. For you to compute for the onset, look for the T0 and then T1. So I already answered for this. The onset will be 15 minutes. Okay? So for the peak of the medication, the formula will be T0 minus T2. So if the T0 is 8 a.m. and T2 is at 9 a.m., how many minutes or how many hours will be the peak of the medication?
1 hour po.
1 hour or 1 hour, ano? Sorry?
60
minutes.
1 hour or 60 minutes. Thank you. Correct, no? So if you will see there, like for example, I'm giving antihypertensive medication, beta blocker, and then it's stated there that the peak of the medication will be 30 minutes, no? So if I will give the medication at 9 a.m., for example, so I expect that the blood pressure of the patient will be normal at 9:30.
9:30.
Very good, no? 9:30 because the peak of that medication is 30 minutes. So why do we need to know this? Because if you know how to look for the minutes or numbers, we could identify what time we could assess for the effectiveness of the medication. So for example, we gave antihypertensive drug and stated there that the peak of the medication is 30 minutes. You gave it at 9 a.m. and then you come back to the patient at 9:15. You check the blood pressure. The blood pressure of the patient has not yet normalized. Maybe you will tell the patient that drug is not effective. Wherein that drug effect has not reached the peak. Okay, is it clear?
Yes po. Yes po.
Thank you. I need to talk in English for the benefit of our our exchange students. Okay? But can you understand?
Yes po.
Okay. So what is now the duration of action? The duration of action is the length of time the drug exerts a therapeutic effect. The period from onset until the drug effect is no longer seen. Let's go back to the diagram, no? So that we will have one single diagram. So here, we gave the medication at 8 a.m., that is the T0. And then the drug elicit the minimum effect at 8:15. That is the T1. At 9 a.m., the drug elicit the maximum effect. That is the peak at 9 a.m. That is T2. And then the drug effectiveness has been slowly declining by 10 a.m. So meaning by 10 a.m., the pain, because here's zero, no? And then by 10 a.m., the patient started to feel pain again, maybe a scale of 3. Okay? Meaning the effectiveness of the drug has already been declining. So this is the T3. Okay? So until 10 a.m., the medication will elicit the therapeutic effect. But after this, the patient will feel pain again. Okay? So if you're going to compute what is now again our duration of action, T1 minus T3. So if I will ask you, how many hours and minutes will be the duration of action of our medication?
145 minutes.
Very good, because the computation will start from 8:15 T1 up to T3, which is 10 a.m. We will not count the onset of action. Okay? So that will be 1 hour and 45 minutes. No? That will be the duration of action of the medication. Okay? Is it clear? So in your drug handbook, you will see similar tables like this. No? All medications will have this type of table, no? Wherein it will show the onset, the peak, and the duration of each medication. So, based on this example that you are saying, we could say that if we will give the medication per Orem tablet, expect the minimum effect to be felt by 15 after 15 to 30 minutes upon administration. And then the highest effectiveness of the medication wherein we could evaluate for the effectiveness of the drug will be after 1 to 2 hours, and expect the drug to be effective until 4 to 6 hours in the body. Okay? Clear? Can
Yes.
you understand now? If you will see this type of tables in your drug handbook. Okay. So let me continue. In the theories of drug action, I'm telling you about the receptor, no? So each medication definitely will need a receptor for them to reach the target site. Okay, because the receptor will be the vehicle, no? It will allow the drug to enter a semi-permeable membrane to reach the cells and give the effect. Okay, so drug receptor interaction, there are certain portion of a or the drug molecule or the active site that selectively combines with some molecular structure or the reactive site on the cell to produce a biological effect. So that is the drug or the ligand plus the receptor interaction. Okay, this is the medication, this is the receptor. So once they bind, it will give a reaction or effect. Okay? So the receptor site in a cell, each cell will have millions of receptor site, no? But not all medication will have receptor sites on each cell. So meaning not all medications will have receptor sites on each cell. So if a drug is considered a high affinity drug, this medication will have receptor sites on most cells. Wherein, if a drug is considered low affinity drug, they will have limited receptor sites in the cells in the body. Okay? So receptor sites are wherein the drug act at specific areas on the cell membrane, react with certain chemicals to cause an effect within the cell. And we call this the lock and key theory. So if the medication or the active ingredient of the drug will bind with a correct receptor, like the key with the correct lock, it will open, no? So if you put an incorrect key to a lock, it will not open. So same goes with our medication. If the active ingredient of drug, the effect. Okay? So remember, each receptor once binded with a drug cannot bind anymore with other drug. Okay, specific with one medication. So once it binded with an incorrect medication, that receptor will become useless because it will not give a reaction because it binded with an incorrect medication. Okay, do you understand po? So this is the reason why as well, some medications, although we are giving the same medication to the same condition, not all patients will have the therapeutic benefit. For example, we have patient 1, we have patient 2, we have patient 3, and we have patient 4. All of them are hypertensive, meaning they have the same disease. All of them are taking metoprolol, which is an antihypertensive drug, beta blocker. Okay? They have the same condition, hypertension. They are taking the same type of medication, metoprolol, beta blocker. But why is it the effects are different? Patient 1, there is toxicity, meaning the patient developed headache and the blood pressure did not go down. For patient 2, taking the same type of medication with hypertension, the patient blood pressure decreases but experience headache. The third patient, the blood pressure decreases and did not develop headache. And then the fourth patient, no headache, but the blood pressure did not go down. So did you see the effect? No? Meaning, same symptoms, hypertension, same findings, same disease, given taking the same medication, which is metoprolol beta blocker, with the same dosage, will have different effect on the body. Why is it? Because our body have different receptors. Okay, maybe to one patient, the reason why metoprolol is very effective, it's because her body has more receptors to this type of medication compared to other patient that has less receptor to that drug. Okay? Do you understand, class? Is it clear?
Yes po, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Let me continue. Okay. So this topic has been discussed before, but again, I will summarize. No, medication has two effects: primary and secondary. So when we talk about primary effect, this is the desirable effect. This will be the therapeutic effect. Why you are taking the medication? You're taking antihypertensive because you want to lower down your blood pressure, and that is the primary effect of the medication. But sad to say, all medications aside from the primary effect will have the secondary effect, and that is the side effect. So when you are taking the medication antihypertensive, your blood pressure decreases, but you developed headache. Okay, so for example only, no, and headache is considered the secondary effect. So secondary effect could either be desirable or undesirable because there are medications wherein the side effect is considered therapeutic, like for example, glutathione, wherein the side effect will be whitening of the skin. which are considered desirable, or it could be taking celestamine or antihistamine, wherein the side effect will be drowsiness, wherein some patient would prefer not to feel drowsy, not to experience headache. So it depends, no? But most of the secondary effect, the side effect are are undesirable. Okay? So we could say that the adverse effect is has deleterious effect. No, when we say deleterious, it is usually harmful. Okay? So what are the principles of drug action? A drug action could either be a stimulant, a depressant, an irritant, or a cytotoxic drug. Okay? So, or a killer. What does it mean? When we say the drug category is a stimulant or that drug will cause a stimulation, it will increase the rate of cell activity secretion from the gland. That's what my example a while ago, no? You have diabetes. So you are given metformin so that it will stimulate your pancreas to produce more insulin, because insulin will bind with glucose and it will cause decrease in the glucose in the blood. Okay, so that is an example of stimulation. Another, it could be depression. Depression, it will decrease the rate of cell activity secretion from the gland. So if your organ are producing too much hormone, too much neurotransmitter, no? So the medication now will try to control them, will try to block, will try to inhibit that organ to produce more, because your body are already producing, your body are already having the effect of too much hormone. Okay, so that drug will act as depressant or will cause depression. How about medications that will inhibit or kill organism? These are the cytotoxic medication. It could be anti-cancer drug. It could be any antimicrobial, wherein the purpose of that will be to kill, no, kill the target cells. Okay, so antibiotics, for example, will kill bacteria. No, antiviral will kill virus. Okay? Anti-cancer drug will kill cancer cells. So they will try to target the cells and try to kill them. Okay? To control the production. Okay? Next, irritant. So how do we consider a drug as irritant? When you give this to the patient, it will cause a reaction on the cell. Reacts, no? Once it reach the large intestine, it will stimulate. Actually, this irritant will also act as stimulant, no? But it will stimulate the large intestine to produce more peristaltic movement, to increase the peristalsis, so that the stool will be removed from the large intestine. Okay, so the effect will be an irritant. So remember, most of the patient that we will be taking care of has more than one type of drug. So we need to be cautious, no, in giving medication, especially for patients who are taking more than one medication, because there are instances wherein one drug will have a bad effect on the other one, no. So if we will, maybe one drug will decrease the action of another drug, or maybe one drug will increase the action of the other drug, or maybe one drug together, given together with another drug, will cause adverse effect. Okay, so what are these effects? Wait lang po.
Hello, in this video we will talk about the combined effect of different drugs. First, we will take a quick overview of all possibilities, and then go into detail about each one. Let's get started. When we combine two drugs, there may be no Hello, in this video.
Okay, can you see the video?
Yes po, ma'am.
Yes
Ah,
po.
please sounds din.
Meron din po.
Yes po.
Yeah. Sige, pakinggan nyo lang ito para mas maintindihan nyo before. Anyway, this will be my last topic na naman, ano? Tapos isa-summarize ko po later.
Yeah.
Video, we will talk about the combined effect of different drugs. First, we will take a quick overview of all possibilities, and then go into detail about each one. Let's get started. When we combine two drugs, there may be no interaction, or the total effect may be increased or decreased. There are three mechanisms that increase the effect: summation, additive effect, and synergism. Synergism can be achieved by sequential block, or when one drug alters the pharmacokinetics of the other drug. The decreased effect, or antagonism, can be chemical, physiological, or pharmacological. Pharmacological antagonism may be competitive or non-competitive. Subtypes of competitive antagonism are reversible and irreversible. And mechanisms for non-competitive antagonism are modulating the allosteric site, or events downstream to the receptor. So this is an overview. Now let's go into detail about each one. First, increased effects. Here first we have summation. In this, two drugs produce the same response, but with different mechanisms. And their combined effect is equal to the algebraic sum of individual effects. For example, combining aspirin and codeine for analgesia. Aspirin inhibits prostaglandin synthesis and thereby produces analgesia. And codeine stimulates opioid receptors, which also produces analgesia. Now let's say the analgesia produced by aspirin is this much, and that produced by codeine is this much. Here the analgesia with combination would be this much. Thus both drugs act by different mechanisms but produce the same effect. And the combined effect is the sum of their individual effects. This is called summation. Now let's talk about the additive effect. In this, two drugs produce the same response with the same mechanisms. Here also, their combined effect is an algebraic sum of individual effects. For example, combining paracetamol and ibuprofen for analgesia. They both inhibit prostaglandin synthesis. Thus the mechanism is the same. And of course, the combined analgesia is equal to the sum of individual effects. So this is an additive effect. Now synergism. In the previous two mechanisms, the combined effects were equal to the algebraic sum of individual effects. But in synergism, the combined effect is more than the algebraic sum of individual effects. This can be achieved by two mechanisms. The first mechanism is sequential block. In this, both drugs act on different steps of the same biochemical pathway. For example, sulfamethoxazole plus trimethoprim combination on the pathway of folic acid synthesis. Here, sulfamethoxazole inhibits folate synthase and trimethoprim inhibits dihydrofolate reductase. If used separately, they act as bacteriostatic drugs. This means they only stop the growth of bacteria, but don't kill them. However, when they are combined, the sequential block produces a bactericidal effect. This means it kills the bacteria. So this is a sequential block. Synergism can also occur when one drug alters the pharmacokinetics of the other drug. For example, when we give levodopa alone in Parkinsonism, the effect is negligible because most of the levodopa is degraded in peripheral sites. So very less of it enters the CNS to produce an effect. But if we combine it with carbidopa, the carbidopa prevents its peripheral degradation. So most of the levodopa enters the CNS and produces the effect. Thus, with carbidopa, the effect of levodopa is significantly increased as compared to when it is given alone. Thus, in synergism, the combined effect of two drugs is more than the sum of their individual effects. So these were all the mechanisms where we see an increased effect. Now let's talk about antagonism. Here one substance decreases the effect of the other one. Practically speaking, in these cases, only one is an actual drug. The other is usually our endogenous molecule, or sometimes poison, whose activity we want to decrease. As we saw earlier, the antagonism may be chemical, physiological, or pharmacological. In chemical antagonism, one substance is simply a chemical antidote for the other one. In simple words, they fight and neutralize each other, even without the involvement of any living thing from our body. For example, gastric acid versus antacids, heavy metals versus chelating agents, heparin versus protamine, etc. Antacids, being basic, neutralizes gastric acid. Chelating agents form inactive insoluble complexes with heavy metals, which decreases their effect. And highly positively charged protamine neutralizes strongly negative heparin. Thus, in chemical antagonism, the interaction between two substances is purely chemical. Next is physiological or functional antagonism. In this, both substances act by different mechanisms, but their ultimate effect is on the same physiological parameter, in opposite direction. For example, histamine versus adrenaline, on the tone of bronchial smooth muscle. Histamine acts on histaminergic receptors and produces bronchoconstriction. And adrenaline acts on adrenergic receptors and produce bronchodilation. Thus, they both are acting by independent mechanisms. And they produce the opposite effect on the same physiological parameter. Thus, adrenaline is a physiological antagonist of histamine. Similarly, glucagon and insulin are also physiological antagonists of each other. Glucagon acts on glucagon receptors and increases blood sugar levels. And insulin acts on insulin receptors and decreases sugar levels. So this was physiological or functional antagonism. Now the pharmacological antagonism. It's also called receptor antagonism. It can be competitive or non-competitive. The fundamental difference between competitive and non-competitive antagonism is that, in competitive antagonism, the agonist and antagonist compete for binding with the same site on the receptor. Whereas in non-competitive antagonism, the agonist and antagonist bind at different sites, or different molecules. So there won't be direct competition between them. Now let's talk about competitive antagonism. It can be of two types, reversible or irreversible. As per the name, we are going to have a competition. So let's bring the players and the playground of this competition. These are agonist molecules, and these are antagonists. At the bottom, we have a cell and receptors on its surface. This bar here shows how much response is being produced by the receptors. In reversible antagonism, the antagonist makes a weak bond with the receptor. So the binding is reversible. Of course, in absence of antagonists, the agonists can occupy all the receptors, which produces the maximum response. But if an antagonist is present, it competes with the agonist for binding and displaces some of them. This decreases the response. Now comes the key feature of reversible antagonism. At this point, if we increase the concentration of the agonist, the antagonists are displaced due to their weak binding, and the maximum response is achieved. Thus, it's a reversible antagonism. For example, atropine versus acetylcholine on muscarinic receptor. Acetylcholine is an agonist and atropine is a reversible competitive antagonist. So this was reversible antagonism. Now let's talk about the irreversible antagonism. In this, the antagonist binds with a strong covalent bond. So the binding is irreversible. Here, even if we increase agonist concentration, the antagonist is not displaced because of the strong bonding. So maximum response cannot be achieved. Or in other words, the antagonism is irreversible. For example, dibenamine is an irreversible competitive antagonist of norepinephrine at alpha-1 adrenergic receptors. If the idea of reversible and irreversible antagonism is clear, let me talk about an interesting concept, pseudo-reversible antagonism. Basically, it's irreversible antagonism, but at lower antagonist concentrations, it shows features of reversible antagonism. For certain physiological responses, occupying only some receptors is enough to achieve maximum response. So we have spare receptors. In such cases, the irreversible antagonism is not seen in its classical form. What happens is, the antagonist displaces the agonist and decreases the response. Now initially when antagonist concentration is low, if we increase the agonist concentration, they occupy spare receptors. So we can still achieve maximum response. Thus far, it's similar to reversible antagonism. However, with increasing antagonist concentration, more and more receptors are occupied by them, and eventually, spare receptors are also blocked. Now, even if we increase the agonist concentration, the maximum response cannot be achieved. And thus finally, it turns out to be irreversible antagonism. This is called pseudo-reversible antagonism. For example, phenoxybenzamine is a pseudo-reversible antagonist of alpha-1 receptor. So this was about competitive antagonism.
Okay. So if you have listened to the video, you have heard that if we will be giving more than one type of drug, it could affect no the effectiveness of one drug, or maybe there are some cases wherein it could also help increase the effectiveness of one drug. So what are these type of drug to drug interaction? So to summarize that video, we have the additive effect. When we talk about additive effect, two drugs with similar actions are taken for a doubled effect. For example, you have given ibuprofen for pain. You have given ibuprofen for pain. Okay, wait lang, no? So ibuprofen, once given alone, if you will give ibuprofen alone, it will give 30% pain relief. Okay? But if you will give ibuprofen plus paracetamol, which is also a pain reliever, will give 30% effect as well. the
Recording in
action
progress.
of codeine. Therefore, instead of 30% only, it becomes 60%. So, and then plus the 30% effectiveness of the aspirin will result to 90% effectiveness. Okay? This is what you call a synergistic or synergistic effect. How about potentiation? Potentiation is when one drug does not elicit a response on its own, but enhances the response to another drug. So the computation for this will be 0 plus 1 equals 2. So what is 0? Meaning we are giving food or beverage, meaning non-drug item, together with the medication, and the medication will have the doubled effect. For example, patient will undergo operation, for example, no, tooth extraction. So the patient will be given pain reliever. Okay? So for example, the patient has been given pain reliever for a tooth extraction. If that patient is an alcohol drinker, okay, alcoholic drinker, no, the effect of the analgesic or the analgesia given will double. So if a patient is non-alcoholic drinker and given analgesic or analgesia, the effect, let's say for example, is 50%. But if the patient is an alcohol drinker given the same medication, analgesia, it becomes 100%. Okay, another sample. We have caffeine. Okay, so if the patient has been given medication like amphetamine to make the patient more awake. Now, for example, patient is suffering from narcolepsy, feeling sleepy all the time. No, so patient will be given amphetamine so that it will cause CNS stimulation. Okay, so patient will be awake for a longer period of time. For example, for 12 hours, the patient will be awake if patient will be given amphetamine. But if the patient is also taking caffeine, which is also a CNS stimulant, it will double the effect of the amphetamine. So the patient will be awake for 24 hours instead of 12. Okay? So that is what you call as potentiation. If the drug is given together with a non-drug item, but a food that will stimulate or will double the effect of the drug, no, that is potentiation. Okay. Finally, we have antagonistic. Okay. So on the video po, it explained there are several types of antagonism. It could be competitive or non-competitive. Okay. But when we say antagonistic effect, one drug inhibits the effect of another drug. So the equation for this will be 1 plus 1 equals 0. So very, very important that we know what drug should not be given together with another drug, especially if they have antagonistic effect. Because you are wasting the therapeutic effect of the other one. You are blocking the therapeutic effect of the other medication. So the result of this is we should not give them together. Okay? We have to wait for the onset of the medication and the peak of action of one drug before we give the other one. Okay? So, for example, tetracycline plus antacid. Because if you will be giving antibiotic tetracycline and then patient is also taking antacid, it will decrease, no? It will cover the lining of the stomach that will dissolve the antacid. So, antacid will not be absorbed, okay, in the body. Okay, or it will result to decrease absorption. So the effectiveness of the drug will decrease as well. Okay, do you understand? Any question, class? Any question on our discussion?
None.
Okay, so also I discussed before about the adverse reaction. No, we have two types of adverse reaction. It could be bizarre, or it could be we have A and B. No, later I will discuss. No, so the negative effect of the drug, no, we have the side effect, but the side effect is of the milder side or milder type, and side effect could either be good or bad, no. But when we talk about adverse effect, or the adverse drug event. No, it is the negative event following the prescription and administration of a medication. Okay, so this is the mostly the adverse effect is considered life-threatening. So what are we going to do to avoid this? We have to be very careful. So we have to do the pharmacovigilance. No, it's like you have to know what drug will cause toxicity. What will be the adverse effect of the drug on the body? What drug should not be given together with this drug to avoid the adverse effect? So we have two types of adverse reaction. One will be type A, which is augmented. A for augmented. No? Madali naman tandaan, no? Type A for augmented. What is type A? It means we can often predict this reaction from our knowledge of the pharmacodynamic property of a drug. For example, you gave antihypertensive drug. What is the effect of the antihypertensive drug? It will lower the blood pressure. So, what could be the possible adverse reaction if we will be giving antihypertensive drug? It will cause hypotension. So if the drug is given, no, even though, so to avoid this, we have to monitor the blood pressure of the patient before we give antihypertensive drug. Okay? So that is an example of an adverse reaction based on the normal pharmacodynamic effect of the drug. Another example, we give insulin. Insulin will lower down the glucose. So if you will give insulin and you did not check the glucose level of the patient, now maybe the glucose level of the patient is already in the normal level, but still you give insulin. So what will be the effect? Hypoglycemia. So meaning, if you will go, if you give too much medication, the effect of the drug will go beyond the expected therapeutic effect. Okay, so that is the augmented or the type A. Okay, how about type B? Type B or Bizarre. Okay, so A for augmented, B for Bizarre, where the reaction is wholly unexpected and could not be predicted from the pharmacodynamic property of the drug. So, an example of this could be giving antibiotics, no, that could develop um, if the patient has been taking antibiotic as a prophylaxis to treat infection, but then the patient developed rashes or wounds in the body, that is considered bizarre. Okay, so like the Steven Johnson disease, that is an example of a bizarre side effect. Okay, because we cannot, we are meaning we don't know why the patient developed this type of reaction to the medication. Okay, so it could be because of allergic reaction. No, allergic reaction is considered uh, a patient's immunological reaction to the presence of the drug. So to avoid this, we have to do skin testing. Okay, especially if the patient will be receiving the medication for the first time to avoid this allergic reaction, especially the bizarre type, no, which is the type B. Okay, so what are the common triggers of drug allergy? It could be the idiosyncratic reaction. When we say idiosyncratic reaction, this is the abnormal reactivity to the drug caused by genetic difference between the patient and the normal individual. Meaning this is not common, no? Most of the patient, let's say for example, this medication has been given to 100 patient. 90% of the patient has no side effect or did not develop any adverse reaction to the drug, wherein the 10% has developed the reaction. And because of the idiosyncratic reaction caused by the genetic formation of the body on the medication given. So meaning this is not common. So for example, the patient has been given patient with G6PD or glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase deficiency will have anemia if patient will be given glutathione. Okay? So remember, glutathione is an antioxidant. And most of you are taking it without having any reaction on the body, only whitening effect, no? But if you will give this glutathione to a patient with glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase deficiency, it will cause anemia because it will cause the RBC to burst. Okay? So that is an example of idiosyncratic reaction. Okay, wherein when we talk about toxicity, you know this toxicity already, no? So the degree to which a drug can be poisonous and thus harmful to the human body. So to avoid this, we have to identify what will be the maximum dose that we could give. And if ever, do not give it, no, do not give excess amount uh, on what the doctor has been prescribed the patient to take. So if the doctor will tell only 500 milligram, you have to follow that to avoid toxicity. Okay? And assess as well if the patient has problem with the liver or has problem with the kidney to avoid toxicity. Okay? And finally, we have the iatrogenic responses. What is the iatrogenic responses? These are the unintentional responses as a result of medical treatment like development of nephrotoxicity and then ototoxicity. So I have given here some medications that will cause ototoxic effect. When we say ototoxic effect, they could cause deafness. Nakakabingi, no? Like for example, giving high milligram of antibiotics, it could cause ototoxicity. Giving medications that will damage the liver, like medications for asthma, no? There are medications for asthma that could damage the liver. So that is hepatotoxicity. And there are medications that could damage the kidney, and that is nephrotoxicity. Okay? So these are the iatrogenic responses. So to summarize our discussion, no? So pharmacodynamic phase, we talk about the effect of the drugs that have on the body. And the drug effectiveness are controlled by the regulatory protein. So these receptors, enzyme, ion channels, and transporter will help, no? Will help the active ingredient of the drug enter a semi-permeable membrane. So if the medication cannot enter a semi-permeable membrane, they will not elicit the response. They will just be a free drug, okay, which travels in the body. Okay, so this drug will bind with molecular targets. So we talk here of the affinity, efficacy, and then potency, and you know already the difference between the three, no? But basically, they are connected to one another because a drug that is high affinity definitely are also are high potency drug as well. Okay, so this high affinity drug that is considered high potency drug will have high efficacy as well. Okay, so the drug that is given together with another drug will have a possible drug to drug interaction. So we need to take note, no, what could be the possible dito pala yan, drug to drug interaction, no? Is it additive? Is it synergistic? Is it potentiation or antagonistic effect? Okay, so we have to be knowledgeable on the medications that we are giving together. For the mechanism of drug action, when we talk about mechanism, we are talking of the receptor needed to activate a response to the cell. So each cells will have millions of receptor, and drug should look for that receptor that will activate the cell. Okay? So if the drug has no receptors, it will not cause a reaction on the cell. Okay? So that is the end of my discussion. Do you have any question on our topic for this morning? Do you understand our discussion,
Yes
class?
po.
Yes, let's go.
Okay, thank you. So we will be giving or uploading quizzes in the Canvas, and that will be by next week. Maybe 2 quizzes, no, for pharmacokinetics and then pharmacodynamics. Okay, so in your prelim exam, you will see sample diagram as I've shown you a while ago on what you have to identify which among the medications is considered a high potency drug, high efficacy drug, ganong mga example, no? And also, we will be giving numbers wherein you could compute and identify whether if the drug is considered um, wide therapeutic index drug or narrow therapeutic index drug. Okay? Clear? So kindly please stand by because I will be taking pictures of your attendance this morning. Okay? Pwede na pong mag-off ng recording sa mga nagre-record. Thank you. At magpi-picture lang ako ha, wag muna kayo umalis.